Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery, to the invisible world beyond our physical bodies, to the unknown, and to the space of synchronicity and incredible mystical moments that can unfold for us. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love this space of having these conversations with people who have had experiences that are astounding, profound, and even just, everyday miracles that we can take into our own awareness and know that this can happen for each of us as we open to the divine and as we start walking that path. So today, I'm really excited to have on the show Debra Graugnard. Welcome, Debra.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
I'm glad you're here. So Debra Graugnard is a best-selling author, a speaker, and an intuitive spiritual healing practitioner with a Masters of Divinity in Spiritual Healing and Counseling. She's a master healer and teacher in the Shadaliya Sufi order. Through her private practice, Joyfully Living Wellness, Debra guides people to honor their relationship with food and their bodies, to heal past pain and trauma, to deepen their spiritual connections, and to live in harmony with the planet. Boy, we need some of that right now. Her latest book and accompanying course, Bridging the Gaps, A Journey to the Center of Yourself, she guides women to access and embody their sacred feminine essence and hold the energy of true feminine that is needed for healing of humanity and the planet. And so this is such an important thing for women right now as we move through the coronavirus pandemic and into the new way of life we're being called to live. We are not going back to business as usual. I cannot agree with that more. Debra facilitates transformative programs and retreats online, and you can join her for a free weekly prayer and healing circle on Sunday mornings. You can learn more about that at joyfullylivingwellness.com, and of course that will be in the show notes. So Debra, so glad to have you on the show to share your perspectives on the world today, and also to share with us first your own awakening process. We're so curious to know about your own story, and I've heard this story before because of course we've connected, and it's amazing. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your own awakening process.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, it's a story. You talked about having everyday miracles, and I agree, every day is a miracle. And, we have the big experiences and the little experiences, and my initial experience was definitely a big one. It was, I was not seeking. I was not looking for anything to happen. I had kind of started getting that inkling that there was something more to life, and, that I was questioning what I was doing in my daily life. At the time, I was in high tech. I was working for IBM in Austin, where you live, and, I'd gone up to Dallas for a class it was when TCP/IP was first being introduced into local area networking, right? We were switching everything from the old NetBIOS world to the TCP/IP world. And I'd gone up for a class, and, totally couldn't be more non-seeking, more of a non-seeking moment, if you will. And just out of the blue, there was someone in the class who also just came last minute out of the blue to come in place of a coworker who had a family emergency. And he was there, didn't have a car. He'd flown in from out of state, didn't have a car. I overheard him talking on the phone, those things that used to be attached to the wall. Heard him in the break room making a call to his company and saying, look, I really need a rental car. They can't just walk across the street here. It was, across the big major double-decker 8-lane highway to his hotel. And he's like, I can't get there from here. And so I said, look, if you don't get a car or you need help getting to a rental car, I can give you a ride. I've got my car here. I just driven up, Anyway, to make a long story a little bit shorter, I ended up giving him a ride to his hotel. Never met him before, didn't know who he was, dropping him off there. And we started talking, and out of the blue, it was like both of us at the same time, and we both experienced the same thing, which is what makes this, I think, even more extraordinary. But at the same time, it was like being sucked through a sieve, and it's like we were sucked out of our bodies, and then the next thing, we were in different bodies. And we knew we were still sitting in the same place. We could still see each other, but we could also see the surroundings were different. We were in different bodies in a different place. I can assume in a different timeline. And we knew each other, and we knew a lot about each other. And this happened. It happened then, and then it happened again and again and again. I ended up giving him a ride every day for that week. It was a 5-day class, and every day that week it happened multiple times. We would just sit down and look at each other and connect and start talking, and then there we would go. And each time we were in many different bodies that knew each other and related to each other. And it was, I remember one time he was an elderly man and I was an elderly Native American man. And we were sitting in like a desert setting, and we were friends. He was an elderly white man. I was an elderly Native American man. Another time he was a younger adult male, and I was a younger adult female. I had long black hair. I had 3 children. I lived in this house. I was exhausted. I mean, I could feel it, like, oh, I'm so tired. And, it just went like that through the whole week. And so that was a profound experience in and of itself, in that it told me, wow, there is so much more to this world we live in than the right here and the right now. But what was interesting is, like, in being, like, traveling from place to place, it was like being like traveling through the realms. And in that in-between space, I felt like it was just downloaded and templated with all kinds of information. And what I came away from that experience with that was the most profound is just that all of those things that I had stressed about and sweated about and fretted about and thought were so important in my day-to-day life, it was like I didn't have an attachment to it anymore. It was, okay, it was relevant, but it didn't have the pull on me. And I came away from that feeling like everything is love, and love is all that matters. And that was it was just such an expansive and beautiful feeling.
That's so intense. And, I still, even hearing this story again, this is like a second or third time I've heard this story. It's like amazing each time. Questions come to me like, how did you focus on anything that was going on in the class that week? And then just the amazement that it happened again, because I've had mystical moments where I'm like, whoa, that's so crazy that thing just happened. And then I try to make it happen again or hope that it happens again, and it doesn't. Like, of course it doesn't happen again. It's like, no, that was a one-time thing. But you got it repeated like over and over again for like an entire week. Like, that's just unheard of from what I've experienced in my conversations with people. And then you didn't end up being this person's like soulmate, right? Like, you didn't like then go off and get married or anything, right? So
Right. There was never any kind of relationship. He was engaged to someone and I was living with someone. He was, in his state, he was engaged to someone. I was living with someone in Austin. And so it was like, okay, well, there's not really I mean, it wasn't that kind of an interesting, it was an intense existential love that we felt, but it wasn't an attraction to each other. So it was very different in that way. It was like we knew that we knew each other. And then after that, we kind of like, well, should we stay in touch? And he said, well, his fiance would not be a fan. And I knew that my person would not be a fan of that, not understanding. Of course, I had to go back and tell him about this experience. And he was very, skeptical about it. We ended up parting ways anyway, just, because like, okay, my life has taken a new direction now, and he didn't really have any interest in that. It's like, all right, well, it's been nice.
yeah, well, that's kind of a radical departure from the way you were living before and probably what you thought was possible before.
Totally, because I was very much in standard American lifestyle, and in the high tech and in the partying and in all of this stuff. you know, my life had a completely different focus. And now, like, I had no interest in that anymore. And my heart, it was like, and you know, one of the things that I shared with you before was that, like, sight had opened up.
Hmm.
And I was getting all this download information about how our past experiences get imprinted into our bodies, and how energies get stuck, and how they influence us, and how they cause physical pain and, you know, bodily dysfunction, and also how to release them, how to heal. And I was, at one time, I went into talk about experiences you don't share often. And I don't share this story very often. I love that I have this opportunity on your show, because I've only shared it really, you know, publicly only a few times. But thank you for
Yeah,
Soul
well, this is
Nectar.
exactly the kind of stuff we like to share in Soul Nectar Show.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember at one time I went into the grocery store, and it was like, it was at one of those moments where you definitely didn't tell anybody, because honestly, I couldn't tell what I was seeing versus what everybody was seeing. And I kind of had to like sit and figure it out. But could look at people, and I could see like all of these faces inside of them. I could hear all of these sounds coming from them. And I could like just kind of feel and know intuitively their stories, and all the different stories that were in this package. And I was looking around, and I was thinking, okay, I feel no fear here. I was still in that expansive love state. I was feeling no fear, but I was like, if I was not in this expansive, like in the place I was before, I would be freaking out right now at some of the stuff I'm seeing. I would be running scared out of
I'd
here.
be scared
And
about that. Yeah.
yeah, nobody else here is running scared out of here. And they all seem to be like normal conversation and everything. And so I don't think they're seeing the things I'm seeing. But, you know, it just informed me of so much of how, you know, and I use this in my healing work to this day, of how the voices and the, you know, the imprints of the old stories live in the body, and how the voices play out and influence our behaviors and our beliefs and our relationship to the world around us and to ourselves. You know, all of that stuff still gets imprinted, and it lives there until we give it a freedom of motion. You know, we give it a full breath and let it expand and release from us, and then we can return those parts of ourselves that were fixated on that story and attached to that story. We can turn those parts of ourselves to our core truth and what's real for us, and like come home to ourselves, and the journey to the center of yourself, come home to ourselves and view the world from our truth.
That's so, yeah, that in the shamanic world, that's called soul retrieval, you know, retrieving aspects of your soul that went unconscious or got lost, or, you know, fled the scenes, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
bringing it all home. Like I had a piece that was gone from an early childhood traumatic experience at 1 year old.
Mm-hmm.
And the trauma basically was not what I expected, but what happened was it fled the innocence out of my body. So like this innocent part of me kind of fled out of my body, and then what took its place, because something always takes its place, you know, and
Right.
it was shame, and it wasn't my shame, it was shame from my mother that
Mm-hmm.
I took into my body, and that shame stayed in me, and it colored my life's experiences until it was removed about, you know, 42 in my first spiritual healing, the shamanic healing, where that part was removed, and then the invitation was to coax this innocence to come back inside, because it
Yeah.
does, you know, it's been gone for so long, it's been hanging around, you know, hovering but not integrated for so long, that you got to coax it back in. So it's so interesting, because all of these lifetimes that you, or aspects of self that you experience with this person, were like fragments or pieces of you in your larger sense, like fragments or pieces of your soul that had powerful experiences that were unresolved with this particular person, apparently.
Apparently. Yeah. Pretty amazing.
And then, you know, here's the thing is, don't you get into this space after a while? Like when I first started this work, I was so curious about the stories behind every single thing I would uncover about myself. And then at a certain point, I just decided I don't know anything. Like
You
it's
don't
just
know anything. Yeah.
energy. Like,
Right.
like at a certain point, I stopped during healings. I stopped seeing, like the Egyptian temples and the whole story that came through. And I would tell my client the story. At some point, I stopped seeing that. I was just like, no, it's just energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because the question is like, okay, so we're seeing this because it's guiding you to something in the here and now that's available for you. And so let's just go there.
Yeah, it's like focus on your life right now. I remember when I first started trying to research past lives, it was the same thing. It was the encouragement, you have a life, live it. I actually heard this voice in my head, like a man's voice, loud. It was the only time that's ever happened to me, and it scared the what out of me. And it said, you have a life, live it. And it was like booming, in my head. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, I'll
Yeah.
stop looking into that. But this happened to you spontaneously. That's the thing I found, is like, if you're looking or seeking it, it sometimes it can delay the thing from happening. It wasn't even on your radar to be looking for this kind of stuff.
Right. Right. It wasn't, and it's, it was, honestly, it was just the beginning. And that's what set me on the journey of seeking. And, I shared with you before, but for others who haven't heard it, I started seeking, and I was looking everywhere. How can I know more about this? How can I like connect with something that's going to help me understand it? That's going to help me to like understand more about what's available, because it's like, it's kind of like the slate got wiped clean, right? We come in as children with these clean slates, and we get all this imprinting from the world that forms our information system of how we're going to relate to ourselves, how we're going to relate to the world, whether or not, what we believe about the world and about ourselves. And suddenly this kind of on one layer got wiped clean, on another layer, that's the healing journey that follows, right? Is to release all of those things so that you can really live in your truth, or more so, right? I believe as long as we're in human bodies, we still have more to uncover. And that's part of the fun.
Well, it
But
can be a fun. I mean, if you look at it this way, it can be a discovery, it can be an unfolding, and it can be like solving a puzzle. Interesting in that way. And if you're in the space of it's not happening to you, but it's happening for you.
right, right. You in my bio, you mentioned that I'm a healer and teacher in the Shadaliya Sufi order. My teacher, who I ended up studying with for 20 years, as a teacher from Jerusalem, and he used to say that this life, it is for you and it is from you, but it's not about you.
It's for you and it's from you, but it's not about you.
Yeah. So often we make our stories about us. It's like, okay, it's from us, or at least our relationship to it is from us. It's for us, right? It's given for us for a reason. How we relate to it is from us, but it's not about us. So we can let go of, it's like, it's not about us. What is it there that is on a deeper level, more expansive level, that it is giving and guiding you to, or reflecting for you to know about yourself? Everything can be a learning experience.
Yeah. So apply that concept to this corona epidemic that we've been experiencing. And, it's been profound, the things that it's showing each of us. Talk a little bit about what you've noticed about the epidemic and what it's showing us collectively.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. I have some very strong feelings about what's happening, and I hope and pray that enough of our collective will, or at least, I guess I get to trust whoever is meant to get it will get it on whatever level they're supposed to get and whatever they're supposed to get out of it, right? When I say that we can't go back to business as usual, I hope and pray that we do not go back to business as usual. I feel like we have, as a collective, so much taken for granted what we take from this earth. We have, all, even in the personal development world, we have all about the abundance mentality. And anybody who's, been on my podcast and healing circles for a while knows I don't like the word abundance. at all. I think that it's like the flip side of the scarcity coin, that, you know, oh, there's scarcity here, I'm going to flip the coin to abundance. But what if we look at sufficiency? We've each come here with a certain purpose and a certain, you know, things to discover about ourselves and to be and to give and to contribute. And we have everything that we need for that. But with all of us, especially in the United States, we are so wasteful. We're so into abundance and wanting more and more and more, and we take and we take and we take, and we're wasteful. And we are taking so much from our earth resources. It's like our earth is a living being. It is a part of us. We are a part of it. And we cannot think of ourselves, we're so disconnected. It's just like you know, when we disconnect from ourselves, right? And we have to retrieve the parts of ourselves. Feels like the earth is saying, okay, enough. Everybody, I'm retrieving myself here. You got to come back home. You got to be a part of me. You got to be one with me. And if you think, we've been talking for a long time about what we need to do to reverse or at least stop the climate change. And yet we've never been able to do enough to make a difference, a significant enough difference. And suddenly the earth says, all right, everybody, here we go. I'm going to give you something that's going to stop you in your tracks. We're going to clear the air. We're going to, you know, we're going to turn things upside down. And it is turning things upside down, I believe, in overall, ultimately, a positive way. And for anybody who is suffering, I know there are a lot of people suffering right now and people who have lost loved ones. And I want to, you know, extend heartfelt sympathy for that. I don't mean to make light of anybody's pain by any means, but I do believe that as a whole, that it's caused us to stop, to pause, to give the earth space to breathe again. And it's calling us to come back home as a collective. The time that we've been given to be more still and quiet and inward. Some people have tapped into their creativity. Some people have fostered relationships. Some people are hopefully taking some time to just be with themselves and get to know themselves. There's great opportunity here. And we're also discovering, now I know, and I'll say it because I really have a serious heartache, and my heart goes out for domestic violence is on the rise and child abuse is on the rise. And that is, you know, that's a huge pain in my heart. But we have an opportunity in this, and I think we have been discovering what are the things in our world that are really important. I mean, and look at the disparity and the inequality in the financial world and in the, you know, in socioeconomic and race. We're seeing it more clearly now in ways we can't deny, though I'm sure some still will. And, you know, and I hope that we will take long-lasting measures to correct some of the things.
Yeah, I can really agree with you. I feel like what it's exposing is lots of conversations, right, that have been ignored. Lots of conversations that needed to happen. That it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. You know, I'm too busy with work. I'm so busy with my hectic lifestyle that I have no time to consider that. Like, for example, I mean, really simple stuff like drinking soda instead of water,
Mm-hmm.
eating fast food instead of a home prepared meal,
Mm-hmm.
you know, eating too much meat instead of vegetables.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
there's like healthy diets, right? And I
Diets
think,
that are healthy for the people are also the diets that are healthy for the planet. And that is, I think,
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is a real hot button for me. And try not to wave the vegan flag too high, because I know it turns a lot of people off, but I do believe that our, you know, the way that our interaction and our relationship to animals in this world, and I mean, you look at where the coronavirus came from the wet market in China. We have wet markets in the United States too. We have the CAFOs. You look now, I mean, my goodness, just was it yesterday that our government signed an executive order to keep the meat processing plants open, even though hundreds and hundreds of workers in the various plants have been infected and the plants have been shutting down. He signed an executive order that addressed liability issues for the companies. Now, what is this doing for our workers, which the people in the slaughterhouses and the meat processing tend to be the lower paid workers? And it's, I honestly believe that this is one of the messages that our earth is giving us, that you cannot disregard animal life in the animal world. And the way that we treat the animals is horrendous, horrendous. For whether we're using them for food or for profit or for, or for products or for you know, entertainment, pleasure, trophy hunting, you know, all that stuff. The ways that we use animals, collect animals, import them and export them for various things. It is just, it's disgusting. And, you know, when you think of the field, the energy field of the entire planet, I'll tell you another story, if I may, that will drive this home. What happens in the planet ripples around the field energetically. And we all feel it. It all becomes part of the collective. And when something happens on the other side of the world, it ripples. It ripples through the waves.
Like 9/11 happened, and we all felt that even before we turned on the television.
Mm-hmm.
We knew something big had happened, and so that's what made people turn the television on.
Yes.
To see what's going on.
Exactly. And that's the story I was going to tell you about. It's when I was I was living in California at that time, and I was asleep, and I jumped up in my dark room. I was living in the mountains where it was very dark and very quiet and very nice. And I jumped right up, and for whatever reason, I grabbed my clock and I looked to see what time it was. It was 5:45 a.m. in California. But just before waking up, I had dreamt this whole thing. So I thought I was dreaming, and I was like, wow, that was an intense dream. I felt the fear and the panic and the people running and the, you know, things crumbling. And I didn't dream the plane part, but I dreamt the reaction to it. And it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what had happened until later when I got to work and people started telling me about it. And I went to the television that was on site and watched it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was my dream at 5:45 this morning, which was 8:45 in New York. So the things that happen do ripple, and they impact us all. And when you think of the amount of trauma, and here we are, a trauma inflicted world right now. And people, you know, especially women in the Me Too movement and in the, you know, a lot of that's coming up about childhood sexual abuse and sexual trauma, people are really stepping up, breaking through the barriers and the shame and everything else to step up and talk about this trauma. The trauma that is experienced in this world is held in the field, and it ripples through everything. And there's the animal industry, animal agriculture industry, animal trade industry, all of that is a huge source of trauma. And all of our pandemics that have come over the last, well, even the 1918 Spanish flu, the bird flu, all of them have come from human beings putting animals into situations that stress them and that compromise them and that confine them and misuse them, and are not reverent to their sentient beings. And all of our diseases have come from a transference from an animal in such a situation.
Well,
I
and that's
think the
exactly
earth
what
is
makes the
telling us
vaccines
something.
not safe too. It's like the monkey parts and the brain and all that kind of stuff I've been reading about, that
Mm-hmm.
makes the vaccines not safe actually. And a lot of people don't know that stuff, or they think it's just conspiracy theory. But in my book, conspiracy theory is generally something that has some measure of truth. And so, people that don't want that to be known, then they discredit you and make you look like a crazy person and
Mm-hmm.
make everybody think that you're nuts, and then you don't believe it anymore. So anyway, I don't think people like spend their whole lives trying to create conspiracy theory to like be labeled a nut job. That's not like most people's desire in life, is to go do that.
Right.
So it's really kind of interesting how we can navigate this space, because there's so much up and so much being revealed. 2020, the year of clear vision, that how do we even cope with all of the things? It's like
Mm-hmm.
we need to make so many radical changes that it can seem overwhelming,
Yes.
just the number of changes that we're being called to make.
Yes. We need a complete system reboot. And you have the butterfly behind you.
Yeah, I love Mariposa. She's great at
Yeah.
this.
Yes, exactly. I mean, because, um, I work with the Climate Healers group also, and we've been using the analogy of the butterfly. Silas Rao, who is the executive, who's a founder of Climate Healers, he uses that analogy of the butterfly. And once upon a time, when I lived on an organic farm, I was matron of the monarch maternity ward, where we would protect the eggs from getting mowed down in the fields, but where the milkweed was, where the wild milkweed was, and we would bring them into the monarch maternity ward and give them an opportunity to hatch into caterpillars and become a chrysalis and then butterfly. And one thing that is amazing about this story that I think really gives us some clarity about an opportunity that we have right now is the caterpillar. When the caterpillar hatches out, it hatches out on the milkweed plant because that is the food that it needs in order to grow. And so it starts to eat and to eat and to eat and to eat, and it grows and grows and grows. And it eats and it poops and it eats and it poops and it eats and it poops. And it does not thinking about how much it needs, or, if it's consuming too much of the plant. It just eats what it needs to grow. And it goes through its 5 stages until it gets to a point where, all right, it's a full grown caterpillar, right? And the monarch caterpillars are beautiful caterpillars. And suddenly it's like, okay, it's time. It's going into labor or whatever. And it goes up to a high place and it attaches itself to a stem or a leaf or something. And then it hangs upside down in a little J shape. And it will, what happens is it secretes an enzyme. Like, it automatically secretes an enzyme that digests itself. So it's digesting everything that has grown out of this consumer phase of consume and poop and consume and poop, right? This consumerism and wasteism. And that's the phase we've been in, really, is consuming and waste, consuming and waste. And so once it can't consume and waste anymore, it starts to digest itself. And it digests all of that into, and the excrement of the digestive process is this green fluid, this green liquid. The only thing that survives is what's called the imaginal cells. And the imaginal cells, which actually have been there and invisible all along since it was in the egg, they feed on this composted excrement, right? The composted past, right? It feeds on that in order to grow into something new. And the imaginal cells correspond to the various body parts of the caterpillar. And as they feed, they grow into their body parts and come to form the caterpillar that will eventually emerge from the chrysalis and fly away as a new life, right? So think about, all right, maybe this coronavirus is putting us into that chrysalis phase. where we're now becoming, okay, we have to come inside. We have to digest ourselves, digest our past, digest all of the imprinting from our past and our relationship to it, and how we're doing in the world, the impact it's having on the world, what the world needs. And it's like, okay, we have an opportunity for a beautiful digestive process here.
And
And
it's
then,
also called integration. You know,
yeah,
it's sort of like integrating all the things in your life, processing it, understanding it, you know, knowing why it happens from a bigger place, and opening to a new meaning for everything, you know, like to write a new story about it, which is reinvent yourself, which is why I teach the work I teach. You know, it's because I had to do that. I had all those life experiences leading up until, you know, consume, I want more, I need more, I need more, I need more, it's out there and I need to get it inside of me, you know.
mm-hmm,
So like that transformation point is, it's like it almost gets to this place where you don't want to live anymore with the way it is. Like
yeah,
it's just, you want to die. Like there is this impetus to die. There actually is like this desire to die. And that desire to die is the first movement into the chrysalis in my perspective.
yeah, I love that.
And so don't do it, you know, don't kill yourself. You know, just
Yeah,
know that that inspiration to die is a sign that you're ready to awaken. Like it's not a death. It's a death in one sense because it's a death of who you've been up until now. It's a death of your whole life. It's a death of your identity. You know, all the things you know claimed as yourself, like your title, your job, your how much money you make, where you live, your Mercedes, whatever the thing is. And that no longer is relevant for who you're becoming. Like it's so inconsequential when you pass over this threshold. You just don't care about that stuff anymore. There's
yeah.
something so much more profound and valuable on the other side of this transformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. You know, and most people can look back at those times that, and they can like discover that, all right, was I really happy there? Did I really like that? What were the things that made me uncomfortable? You know, what were the pains, you know, like, and what was the me that was on the inside of that, and what was it that I was searching for on the outside of myself? And then these are the things that tell us really the truth about who we are
You
inside
know,
of
this
ourselves.
is why I don't understand like law of attraction people, and there's, please don't take offense at this people, but this is just a question. I just have this question. I don't understand, if you've been through the chrysalis and come out the other side, why would you ever come out the other side trying to manifest exactly the same thing that were the hallmarks of what the old you thought was so great? Like why the impetus to, like, you know, create an equation of self-worth to like how much money you can charge per hour doing your cool law of attraction thing? To me,
Mhm.
I
Right.
still don't get that. And I've had so many coaches like hound me because I don't charge enough money for my service, and I, you know, da 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 da, and I'm not charging enough, and I'm worth more, and all
Right.
this kind of stuff. I just, I don't get it,
Right.
because the me that was before would have thought that was so cool to make $1,200 an hour. The me I am today is like, how many people am I serving with that?
Yeah.
I'd rather serve more people at a, you know, in a bridge, in a space that they can meet me at with a little stretch, you know. I'd rather serve way more people than to serve a small demographic that can afford to pay that.
I agree.
That's me.
Mm-hmm.
No judgment on anybody else, but I just feel like if we're moving through to the other side of this cocoon, aren't we going to a different world where we're not equating our worth with something external like money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question.
Very good point. And where, you know, money, I mean, money is such a significant part of what drives our world. I mean, and like we were talking about the, you know, I threw that profit word in there accidentally earlier when I was talking about all of the way that we are utilizing the resources of the earth and the living beings on the earth and all the living parts of the earth. Um, not to exclude human beings from that, right? The way that we use each other. And that's where this huge inequality has happened that we're seeing right now in the, world financially. And this is one of the things that has got to topple,
Yeah, because
because
we're
it's
not going to
not
create the same
sustainable.
model.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
I think that's what I'm reacting to. Is it feels to me like, we've had all these, and I love light workers. I am one, and we're all learning together. So please, like, stay with me here, because these are thoughts that have been gone through my mind. Is like, why are we trying to create the same model and go like, oh, now the scales have flipped and everything is turned, and now we're the ones that are going to make all the money? Really?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that what we're doing?
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing something so much greater than that.
I do too. One of the things that I have loved seeing in this pandemic time, where we've all been uh, sequestered, is that, I signed up for that Nextdoor app, and I've seen on there where, you know, somebody put on there, hey, I'm a disabled veteran, and, but I can make grocery store runs. So if there's anybody who's home with kids and can't get to the grocery store and, whatever, let me know. I'm happy to do a morning run and drop off your groceries. Had somebody else post on there that, hey, I got an extra loaf of bread. If anybody needs one, I'm happy to, share it with you, and so-and-so's making this, and anybody need that. And it's like, this is the economy. This is what makes this is, I think, the kind of change that can come from this. I hope that this is something that remains a part of our economy, of us sharing and caring for each other. This is the economy of compassion. This is the economy of caring for each other. And I hope that this will continue to emerge, and that we'll carry this forward as we come out of this.
I love that. I love that. Well, gosh, so many good visions and points, and what a full interview. Thank you so much for sharing all of your own journey, which is just mind blowing, and how you've translated it and what you're seeing in the world today, and what we could all be taking a closer look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have a way that people get started in working with you?
Yes. Well, you're welcome to come to our Sunday morning prayer and healing circle.
That's right. I'll
And
put the link to that. That's every Sunday morning, and weekly prayer and healing circle at joyfullylivingwellness.com.
yes. And, so I guess we're coming to the end of our interview. One of the things that, if I can just say quickly,
Yeah.
because I realized I got on the soapbox about, so many things. I had a lot of and today I woke up in a soapbox kind of mood. I really
Sometimes you
did.
do.
I've already
Sometimes it's
been
a
on, like,
soapbox day.
yeah, 5 soapboxes today. But one of the things that's really important, that I think that is paramount and imperative for, as we're moving through this, is that more women, the Bridging the Gaps book, and I have it behind me here, this Bridging the Gaps book, The Journey to the Center of Yourself, is a guide for women to take the journey to the center of themselves, which is a profound thing in and of itself, and then also to from there to really access, like, through the portals. The womb, if you will, is a bridge between the worlds. Whether you are bringing forth life through your womb or not, it is a bridge between the worlds, and it goes both ways. So to really access the essence of the sacred feminine, which is that state of being, that when we're in the state of separation, and the separation from ourselves, that sacred feminine is really needed in our world in order to make the space for it's individually and collectively, for us to come home and do that inner work, and have to be able to connect with source and with truth and what's real and important for us individually and as a collective, so that as we move back out, we can be in integration and in service to what is the most important in the world. And the more that we as women can take that journey and really access that sacred feminine inside and bring that out and hold that state of being, the more that we can hold that for the collective, then the more that we will be serving the collective to make its way home, so that we can have a transformation on a scale that's bigger than ourselves. So I offer that as a part of the Bridging the Gaps book and the Bridging the Gaps program. Of course, the program takes it much farther than the book. You're welcome to the book. If you have any questions about how you can make this journey for yourself, I do have on my website a place where you can sign up for a free 30-minute consult breakthrough session, however you want to use the time. And I'd be happy to jump on a call with you and just talk about whatever you need to talk about. Are you
That's
muted?
beautiful.
There
Thank
you
you
go.
for that offer. Thank you so much for offering that to the audience. I appreciate that. I'll put a link to the book, Bridging the Gaps. I'll put a link to that and also to the program. You guys can check it out. And thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. And everybody, if you really enjoyed this episode, once again, I'll just invite you to, leave a comment, leave a rating, share it out with people that you think would benefit from hearing the messages in this episode. And that's how the search engines know that this is important stuff, is when people engage with the content and they rate it and they like it and they they interact and they share it. That's how the engines know that this is important. And so if you want more people to know about this kind of stuff and you want the world to be a little bit more conscious and you dig in what you're hearing on Soul Nectar Show, then then share it out. We appreciate that. And now comes kisses. You want to help me give everybody kisses, Deborah?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, COVID-free kisses coming your way, everybody. Here come the kisses. Love you guys.
Thank you. Love you all.
See you
Love you,
next time.
Carrie.
Thank you. Love you. See you next time on Soul Nectar Show, everybody. Bye for now.